Hey, how you doing? I'm Jim Foreman. I'm a retired Navy SEAL, 27 years in the teams. I retired in 2018, and now I work here at Tactical 21 as an instructor.
Tony Noser, also with Tactical 21, also with 27 years in the SEAL teams. I retired in 2022 and have been working with these guys ever since.
What is the number one leadership lesson you had to learn the hard way?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think, Tony, I'll go first. I think the hardest leadership lesson I had learned was, teaching my guys to voice opinions and communicate with me. And one time I ignored some red flags, some people speaking up, and that cost, uh, that ended up being a really bad day, right? So if I look back on something that happened that was very negative, I could trace it back to, oh yeah, 2 months ago they brought that up to me about somebody not performing correctly, and I kind of ignored it, right? And then that person failed on a situation, right? So then that's a pretty important leadership lesson. It was like I didn't even take my own advice that I was preaching, right? So if you are teaching your guys to do something a certain way, you better be damn well doing it yourself. And you got to check yourself every once in a while. That's why you want people not just to be yes people, like agree with you. You want somebody to say, hey, I don't think that's the right thing to do. How about we try it this way? And then you should be receptive to that feedback because maybe it isn't the right way. And maybe you go along with what you're doing, but now it makes you think about, okay, well, that's a good question, but this is why, or that's a good point, but this is why we're doing it this way. And I've already thought of that. And we got that covered. We mitigated that risk by this. But if you don't have people questioning you, you can be going down the wrong path of just being complacent.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think very similarly. Assumptions, they get us in trouble all the time, right? So we might assume that what we've communicated or what we've displayed in example has been received by subordinates under our authority. However, there might be misunderstandings in there. So that feedback, that constant feedback loop that you need as a leader is super important. So finding ways to verify that what you're sending in communication is being received in that way, either written or verbal. And so for me, it came down like when I was a platoon chief, there was, you know, a member who was doing great and then, you know, ended up kept having issues that were related to stuff totally outside of work. And it took us too long, I think, to pick that up. And if I had been able to address my own assumptions or the complete that communication feedback loop better, then maybe it would have we would have been able to alleviate that much sooner. So for me, I think communication is huge, both as a leader and as a follower. So as a follower, I've got to know that what I'm executing is what was communicated for me to execute. And all of that is communication is a circle. But as a leader, it's your responsibility to make sure that it's clean and that all of the misunderstandings and assumptions are understood properly by everybody. So assumptions really can tear up an organization.
Yep. And ego plays into this. Like, we usually enjoy working with people with like not a big ego because that could get you into trouble. And also, feedback may not be taken if you have a bigger ego because you think, hey, why you're lower ranking than me? I should know more in their mind, right? So I don't want to take your advice or your input because I'm the leader, right? And that's a poor leadership quality right there. You need to be like, hey, I can't be an expert at everything. I need to hire people and get people that cover my blind spots. And then I want to ask their advice. And yeah, I may be the person putting out the word, but I'm getting that information from somebody else. And I'm also giving credit to that person. And that shows like a little bit of vulnerability and also that you recognize and appreciate input. And people like that, they would follow that, right? They understand that, hey, I could come up with a comment and say, I don't think this is the right thing to do, or I think this is something that we should do, and I'm not going to get shot down. or held back from moving up the chain of command, right? So that is something that we all like to follow.
Yeah, that basically describes a climate of open communication and trust. And you're going to get the best followers and leaders in that kind of climate. So that's the kind of climate that you want to try and foster in an organization.